The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the My Council Services webinar. We're starting promptly at 10:30, and welcome to everybody that's joining. Thanks for being prompt yourselves. My name is Bernie Simmons. I'm going to be facilitating the seminar this morning. We should run somewhere between about kind of 45 to 60 minutes, depending. We're going to be focusing on the mobile working aspects of the My Council Services platform, and also how you kind of automate processes within that. We'll give over the majority of the time to live demo, but we'll do some positioning before that this morning. It's not just me here today. There's a significant assistance from my colleague Rachel Clinton, who's really kind of facilitating things in the background, more about the kind of division of labour between Rachel and I in a moment, which brings me on to some of the FAQs. So the session is being recorded. We're doing that for the reason that you may want to share this with colleagues. If you've seen it and you like what you see and you think it might be relevant to other folks in your organisation, then you can always view the recording and you can distribute that around your organisation. We'll also be sharing a copy of the slides, and we can give you copies of any case studies that we might reference, but the slides will be sent to you in PDF format once the session has ended. Rachel will take care of that. If you like what you see and you want to get into a bit more detail, these sorts of sessions are very much an intro and an overview to give you a kind of a taster, but you want something a bit more specific, or you want us to come in and see your organisation, chat about your particular circumstances and your requirements, we're happy to do that, happy to do another web session or to come on site. And in terms of asking questions, which is I suppose an important point of order, we've actually also muted all the lines. We're conscious that lots of you work in open plan offices, and you may not be able to guarantee that there's no kind of background noise, and we have got quite a large number of people on the call this morning dialing in from different councils right across the country. So we auto mute all of the lines, but that does not mean that we do not want you to ask questions. We actively encourage you to ask questions, and this is where my colleague Rachel plays an important role, in that Rachel will be managing the chat facility through which we would ask you to ask your question. So if you've got a question, use the chat facility on your control panel on GoToWebinar and type your question, direct it at Rachel, if you will, and Rachel will do her best to answer that. If we run out of time, or there's something that requires more detail or is more of a kind of point for discussion, then Rachel will flag that up and we'll arrange a time to speak to you after the webinar this morning. But do feel free to ask questions. The only reason that we've got everybody on mute is just so we can guarantee the audio quality for you listening live, and also for anyone listening to the recording subsequently. So that's the kind of the terms of engagement, if you will, and the FAQs. And let's get on to the agenda. As I said, we'll run for somewhere between about 45 and 60 minutes. So we'll have you on your way at the very latest by 11:30 this morning to get on with the rest of your Wednesday. And we'll start by dealing with a little bit of the kind of the challenge that in local government currently, and that has been the prevailing conditions for some time now. A bit of an introduction to My Council Services. I will also reference at some point through the webinar, some of the other customers using the platform, but we will give the majority of the time, probably about 30 to 35 minutes of the time that we've got together this morning at least, over to demonstration. So you will see some technology live. We talked about how to do Q&A, and we encourage you to ask Q&A and also to follow up afterwards with us if you'd like to do that. So some challenges for public service delivery. I won't dwell on this too long, because I think it's not new news. It's somewhat old news, but it is still relevant news, unfortunately. The need to continue to operate in the public realm under significant fiscal and budgetary constraints. So the shrinking budgets, alongside that, the need to save money and demonstrate cash flow savings, means there's less resources typically. That's both people and assets a lot of the time. And I think it's probably fair to say that local authorities have been at the bleeding edge, if you will, of that kind of austerity agenda and the need to save money, which has not made things an easy operating environment. And I think we can say that with some confidence. Avalus as a business only works with UK local authorities. We've built our entire organisation within this market. So albeit through a different lens, we understand and can see the challenges that local authorities face from a budgetary and resource point of view. But the reality is, there's less stuff around, but you're still expected to maintain the same level of service, and in some cases improve that service. And you're aiming to improve those services because on the flip side, you've got shifting customer expectations. I think it's fair to say that customers of local authorities or any other service organisation expect an immediate response, and they have certain expectations of quality and of choice in terms of how they contact you and the sorts of responses that they get. And we tend not to, as consumers of services these days, make much of a differentiation between whether it's a commercial service provider or a public realm service provider. So we expect good service whoever we're dealing with, because that's what we've increasingly become used to. And then you add to that new and unmediated channels, things like social media, other self-service channels, that customers will make their own decisions about whether they want to use them or not. So you may, encourage people to use one channel, but the reality is there are multiple platforms and channels through which a customer can contact you, ask a question, make a request. And for any of us in the service delivery game, we have to make sure that we're responding accordingly. So no shortage of things to worry about and kind of keep us on our toes collectively. So there's some of the challenges. Let's talk for a minute or two about how My Council Services specifically. My Council Services is the cloud-based platform that Abovus provides and that Abovus develops and supports. And I want to introduce that in the context of the kind of organisational structure of a UK local authority. So if I just build the slide up and then I'll kind of talk you through it, it's probably the easiest way to do it, and make some scribbles on the slide as we go. But if you think about a contemporary local authority, I'm just going to pull a pointer up so I can point at the bits I'm drawing attention to. You're almost certainly going to have some sort of organisation-wide customer services function, or it might be broken into a number of different groups that offer, first-line administrative and customer support to customers contacting you. Sitting behind that as a local authority, you're going to have service-specific functions. That might be public protection, it might be waste, it might be street scene, it might be leisure services, it could be any number of all of the kind of mandated and discretionary services that local authorities provide. But you've got those service-specific functions sitting directly behind and alongside the customer service layer, first point of contact. And then you've got IT in the background, if you will, kind of attempting to and making sure that you are properly organised from a technology point of view, and that they're also trying to kind of make sure that your systems and your data architecture are compliant from a data protection point of view, from a GDPR point of view, and also from the cost-saving point of view, that you're increasingly trying to consolidate the range and number of systems that you're working with, and those that you do have are able to talk to one another, so you get kind of a holistic view of what's going on. So you've got the organisational structure of customer services, or customer first point of customer contact, the frontline service delivery capability, as I said, waste collection, leisure services, public protection, social care, whatever it might be, and then all of that facilitated by IT in the background. When you think about the customer contact layer, there are multiple channels, devices, mechanisms through which customers can get hold of you. It might be a mobile device, a tablet or a smartphone, or even it might still be a computer these days. In lots of different ways. It might still be the telephone, lots of ways that customers are contacting you. And probably most of you are running organisations that still have some form of face-to-face capability, and to make sure that you can help customers through their preferred channel. So if we map the My Council Services platform to that organisational structure, at the top of the stack, we've got what we call our self-service set of modules. So that's customer self-service, the ability for a customer to arrive at a digital point of contact, usually a website, an app on a phone, a browser on a device, whatever it might be, and transact through and with the local authority. So that's how we think about the customer self-service piece. That might be an individual e-form, it might be a customer portal, it could be a range of different things. Sitting directly behind that, we have a fully integrated CRM and case management capability. So the ability to take inbound service requests from customers coming through whichever channel that happens to have been created through, and the ability to manage that first line of contact through a customer relationship management application or a case management type application that we refer to as Service Desk. So that's part of the integrated My Council Services suite. Sitting behind that, then, we also, because we only deal with local authorities, have developed a range of what we would call kind of line of business modules, really, things that do specific functions that are relevant and pertinent to day-to-day local authority operational activities. I'm going to keep my powder dry on that one for the minute, because I'm going to explain that in a bit more detail in the next couple of slides. But there's a kind of detailed functional set of capabilities that sit in different modular applications that sit behind the kind of first line service desk and CRM piece. We also recognise that there is a requirement for 3 other components to make any successful digital platform. One is integration, to make sure that our platform can behave nicely and interact nicely and securely with the other systems that you're using, usually the kind of exchange of data to an incumbent back office system or whatever it might be. So integration. Automation is another crucially important point. So the ability to say, set up rules and configure rules and say, well, if this happens, then make sure that these 3 things happen downstream. So, if someone reports a fly tip and that fly tip is in the normal range, so it doesn't contain signs of clinical waste or asbestos, or there's no obvious signs of who was the perpetrator of that fly tip, then automatically assign that fly tip out to the appropriate team, the appropriate individual based on their availability, their current workload. So the ability to build workflow and rules within the platform. So that sits within this kind of back office piece around automation. And then the final component that we offer as part of the My Council Services piece is what we call MDM. That's a widely used acronym. In this context, we're talking about Master Data Management. So making sure that you can get good governance over your data. And My Council Services can act as either the kind of primary federator of that data, so it can be the primary MDM application, or it can be a subordinate application from a master data management point of view. So if you've already got a master data management application in place, it's making sure that your data is tidy, federated, available, well kept effectively and well organized in a single customer view, then we can act as a subordinate and behave nicely within that existing ecosystem, or we can be the primary provider of your MDM capability. So we can do either role in that regard. So integration, automation, and MDM are an important part of the process. And then the main focus for the session this morning, the next 45 minutes or so, is the mobile worker piece. So as I mentioned a moment ago, if someone reports something through a self-service channel or a face-to-face channel or whatever it might be, or over the telephone, how do you make sure that that service request gets into the hands of the team or the people or the person that can deal with it most effectively in the shortest possible time, and that arrives on their device, be that a smartphone or a tablet or whatever it might be, in a digital format with all of the data that they require, the customer data, the data about the incident or the asset that they're attending, or whatever it happens to be. How do you make sure that gets there in the shortest possible time? And the shortest possible way of doing, or the fastest possible way of doing that, is to try and automate that process. So as I mentioned a moment ago, build a set of rules. Well, if it meets these criteria and it's this type of a situation or service request, then do these things with it, create a task, assign it to this person. And I'll show you a worked example of that process end to end when we get into the demonstration piece. But that's kind of at the core of the mobile worker capability. There are lots of kind of variations therein in terms of the way that can manifest itself and the way that it can be used, and I'll touch on those over the next 40 minutes or so. But that's the kind of principal concept. There's one other component that's important to bear in mind. We've talked about customer self-service, customers doing things for themselves in an unmediated fashion using digital interfaces, web browsers, mobile apps, whatever it might be. The other component, of course, is to make sure that once a customer has reported something, or they've booked something or paid for something, or whatever it might be, through and with your local authority, it's probably quite a good idea to keep that individual or that household up to date on what's going on with it. So the ability, again, through rules and automated workflow, to trigger notifications back to somebody. So I'll take that flight tip example that we were using a moment ago. When someone reports a flight tip, it's probably a good idea at point of receipt to send them a notification via SMS or email or push notification to say, we've received it, this is our standard service level, you can expect that to be dealt with and cleared within 72 hours or whatever the service level agreement happens to be. And then perhaps once it's cleared, you might send them another notification saying, we've dealt with that, and here's a photo of the cleared flight tip, thanks for letting us know, don't hesitate to contact us again. So it's that kind of ability to automate all of those processes that start to get you the incremental marginal gains from a digital transformation point of view. You're saving resource, you're saving time, you're saving organisational calories in terms of getting things done in a more efficient way. And that's how the My Council Services piece fits together. So that's the kind of broad overview. If I just drop down into a little bit more detail on some of these areas, it's just worth mentioning some of the functionality that sits within each of those broad areas specifically. So within this kind of self-service piece, we offer a full eForm designer, the ability to design eForms and deploy them individually or as part of a portal. We offer a suite of native mobile applications that customers can download from the App Store on iOS or from Google Play for Android devices. a whole range of other options. So we can do things like a My Account Enterprise option, which I'll show you in a moment, the ability to do single sign-on, so sign on once, but perhaps have access to data that resides in multiple different systems, the ability to do multi-factor verification if you're doing that single sign-on piece, and perhaps surfacing things like revenues and benefits data or personal financial data so that you know someone is who they say they are. And of course, I mentioned it a moment ago, the importance of being compliant with all of these things, so providing all of the tools within that customer self-service framework for a customer's right to be forgotten, and so on and so forth. So some of the details of the self-service piece. As I drop back down into the detail of some of the back office components, I've talked about the ability to integrate with third-party applications. I've talked about the ability to be the custodian of data and cross-reference that data and federate it and so on. But I also want to dwell on a couple of the other line of business applications, a couple of which I'll show you as we move through the demo in a few minutes. And one of those modules, line of business modules, is something called scheduling bookings and appointments. So the ability to make appointments for a specific service function. So we've created that as a generic application that sits as part of the platform if you want to use it. So that could cover booking something like a bulky item uplift, which is an example I'll show you in a moment. So making an appointment about a waste collection service. It could be booking and reserving an asset of some description, a municipally maintained asset, perhaps a sports pitch, a tennis court, whatever it might be. Or it could indeed be booking a meeting room, or it could be booking an appointment with a revenues and benefits advisor. So we created these horizontal applications that do specific things that you can then invest in once and deploy in multiple times across multiple service areas across the organisation. We do a similar thing for license contracts and permits. So that covers everything from accessible transport, applications for a blue badge, applications for a local parking permit, right through to things like signing up for a paid-for green garden waste service, which is effectively a contract with the council. It could also include something like applying for and receiving a skip or scaffold licence for building works on the premises. Lots of different things that can be done. Risk score calculator, useful for things like compliance-driven inspections. Think about food safety, think about health and safety inspections. Any licensing application might use the kind of risk score calculator. And just to underline the point, the rules engine underpins all of that to ensure that you can build automated workflow. So we've built some quite detailed back office modules that are appropriate for kind of operational activities and line of business activities, but they can be deployed multiple times across the organisation. And then we come on to the main event for the remaining time that we've got together this morning, which is the mobile worker piece. So that comes in various manifestations. And we offer a standard, what we call vanilla mobile worker interface, which I'll show you in a few minutes. We offer a mobile manager interface, so the ability to receive ad hoc tasks and assign them out to your team members, all from a native mobile application device you have about your person. We offer a lone worker capability, so the ability to track the location of your team members and know where they are and set alarms in relation to their availability, their whereabouts, if you wanted to do that, if you wanted to protect and carry out your duty of care. That fits in more broadly with a workforce management capability, so the ability to track and trace where people are, or at least where devices are at any given time. And then we've got some specific interfaces, things like waste worker, that are really about kind of in-cab capability, so the ability to download a complete domestic or garden waste refuse collection round and have that available to the crew in the cab of the vehicle that they're using to carry out that activity. So there's lots of iterations and variations around the mobile worker piece, which is really what we're discussing this morning. So in terms of who else is using it, is a list of about 20 odd, current and recent customers of ours, projects that we've done recently. I won't read through them all. We will share a copy of these slides, but you can see the name of the authority in black bold, suffixed with the range of the My Council Services platform, cloud-based platform that they're using. So Allerdale Borough Council, for example, using our full suite, everything from customer self-service through to mobile working. So I won't read through all of those, but we will share these slides with you after the event this morning. So that gives us a natural break point to go and take a look at a little bit of the technology. And in terms of what I'm going to do at this point is I'm going to try and take us through the process effectively, so that you'll get a sense of what can be done. And the first thing to do is not directly connected with mobile working per se, but I'm just going to show you a customer self-service interface. So I can actually go and create some data. That means I have to log into a portal. So I'm logging into a demonstration portal just to show you, what that might look like. If we were deploying this for a customer, that would be fully branded. It would be an embedded and integrated part of the council's website. You wouldn't be punting customers off to a separate URL. I just need to remember a password, so I'll let that log in. So when we've logged in as a registered customer, just a couple of points to note. Obviously, as a registered customer, there's certain benefits that you opt into. One of those is by identifying yourself, you can opt into being kept up to date with the process and procedure of the things that you're reporting and the transactions that you're doing. As an authenticated and verified customer, you may have access to a broader range of processes and options that are available to you in terms of the council services that are on offer. But you don't have to force people to register and use a portal. The My Council Services platform can be taken to pieces effectively, and you can either deploy the portal, you can deploy individual forms, you can have individual forms that are used purely as a guest, you can have individual forms that require a registration process, so you can really have kind of any kind of variations therein of the different options of allowing customers to access a digital interface to do things. So I'll just very briefly give you a tour of the screen. Real estate left-hand sidebar is a configurable list of options that you can choose to have configured any way that you like. So you can add and remove these things as and when you want to, and that's an important point of order that we'll get onto in a moment in terms of the ability to configure My Council Services so that you can have it looking one way on a Monday morning, perhaps a different way by Monday lunchtime if circumstances and requirements have changed. So configurable left-hand sidebar. In the center of the screen, as I hover over them, you'll see them turn a different shade. These are what we call hotspots or widgets, again, configurable, that can access a form, a process, some existing web content, a link through to other data held in another system, whatever it might be. But these are all fully configurable. Then on the right-hand side, you've got a series of effectively information for the customer, so they can see all their existing service requests, contracts, bookings they might have in place, and then various other webhooks into other council systems, which we won't be touching on today. Just top right-hand corner, the customer as a registered user has the ability to manage their account, switch language, change their password, select data to be removed subject to your own data retention policies. You've got full account management capability that's fully compliant with the principles of the GDPR, the General Data Protection requirements. So let's go and do it. The reason for showing you this really is part of the Mobile Worker webinar this morning is just to create some data. So the whole thing is indexed for search. If I want to, as a customer, and I'm logged in here as a fictitious resident of Redbridge Borough Council, a chap called Gary Wilcox, but if I want to, say, book a bulky item for collection, which is a paid-for service in this scenario, rather than navigating through and trying to find that form, I might just type bulky and search for the term I'm looking for, which doesn't seem to be working for some reason. Oh, there we go, special collection. Arrange removal of bulky items. So it took a second or two to respond. So I don't have to click through to book it and then find the specific form. I can just search for it. If that's what I'm looking for, click on that link on that search return, and that will drop me through directly to the specific form that I need to use for this particular process. When you use a form in My Council Services, as best we can, in every scenario, we apply to the Government Digital Service principles of form design. So it's keeping things simple. We offer a breadcrumb trail across the top so a customer knows where they are in the process. In this example of booking a bulky item collection, so a waste-based process effectively, we're using one of the Line of Business plugins, and that's the Waste Bookings plugin in this example. So it gives a bit of information on the form that all items will be placed outside, crews do not enter properties, and items are not on the above list. The customer will need to make alternative arrangements. We don't give you a specific time. Again, all configurable. This is just a templated example. But if I click on select, you can see how we've got this set up. So this is using the Waste Bookings example or module. So it's using our bookings capability. It's picked up the address of the customer at 78 Grove Hill, E18 2HZ. The platform in its entirety carries the National Land and Property Gazetteer. So that will match up with your council's local land and property gazetteer. That's updated and is synced with all of the updates from the Ordnance Survey around address space and NLPG. So you can get things like UPRNs and street asset identifiers and so on and so forth. So when we're booking a bulky item uplift, it's obviously a waste-based process. You might have that organised in terms of different rounds for different areas. That's where this is using some of the waste data in the background, which will aid actually the mobile working piece further down the line. So if Gary wants to book a removal of a bulky item and he's prepared to pay for that, then he can choose from a set of dates in which collections are available in the area that he lives on, the bulky item collection round that he lives on. So he can either have a date on the 19th of August, 26th of August, 2nd of September, or 9th of September. They're the frequency of those dates. So every 7 days, a weekly collection is available to him effectively. So if he picks the 27th of August and clicks on go, then it will tell him, it will reference the round collection data for bulky items, and it will tell him whether there's slots available on that particular day. And it says, yes, there are. You can book a slot. It's going to be sometime between 9:30 and 4:30. And if he's happy to do that, he then selects that, and it will then open up another set of options for him. So this is what we call a weighted collection. And you'll notice that at that point, payment information has popped up in the top right-hand corner. So, we're charging for this service. And what we're allowing Gary to do is to select certain types of items. So he says, okay, well, I want an electrical appliance, and it is a fridge, let's say. So I'll add that to the list. And if I scroll back up, you'll see that's added £6. If he then wants to add an additional item, and we'll take this time we'll say furniture, and we'll take the ubiquitous mattress, always a mattress to be collected, and it will add that, and it will total up the cost as we go. If he's registered for assisted collections, then he's able to do that. So that's only appearing because Gary is registered as someone that's eligible for assisted collections. Otherwise, that wouldn't appear, and there's no charge for it. So he can select that if he wants it. Let's say that he's happy with that. He's got those 2 items to be collected. He clicks on select, and it writes that booking back into the service request that's about to be created. As a little bit of an example of the art of the possible, the next step, we also invite Gary as a customer to upload a picture of the items that he wants collected. So if he wants to do that, he can click on Add Files, and he can find a picture of the fridges that he wants collected, if that is indeed what he's doing. He doesn't have to do that, and you may not choose to do that, but it's an example of how you can augment the processing and the creation of data around a service request. We then click on Next and allow those files to upload. You can control the number of files, the size of those files, the file extensions that you're allowed to be uploaded, so you've got full governance over the process in that regard. We're then on to the next step, which is payment. So we collect a payment. So this is a revenue neutral service that Gary's booking and paying for. So this is the first point of integration. I talked about My Council Services, the platform, being able to integrate in terms of shared data, but we can also integrate into things like payment gateways and so on and so forth. So we're integrating into a test account for Barclaycard. We've done lots and lots of integrations into things like Capita, Civica ePay, Barclaycard, obviously WorldPay, Iridium, Go Cardless for direct debits, you name it. We've done probably hundreds of integrations into different payment gateway applications over the years. So if I click on Barclaycard, what that will then do is allow My Council Services to complete a secure handshake with the payment gateway provider, and it will carry us through seamlessly as a customer to the now ever familiar online payment capability. So it's picked up the order reference, the total charge, the beneficiary. All we need to do is click on the card type that we want to use and complete the payment. So we'll put in Gary's name, we'll put the card number in, we'll put in an expiry date. These are just test details, of course, and then yes, confirm my payment. So that's the payment card industry compliance side of the process being dealt with by the payment gateway. That's not My Council Services doing that. What we've done is a secure handshake with that application and handed over the data in encrypted format and allowed that to complete its process, and that then hands the result of that payment process back to us. In this case, payment's been accepted. That's £12 for a bulky waste collection with a reference number. So Gary has now got all those details for that transaction that he's completing, and that will eventually be passed off to a collection crew, which is the mobile working piece, of course. Click on Next for confirmation. That will give Gary a summary of all of the data that he's created and the transaction he's about to complete. So it details the collection, the date and the time, a fridge and a mattress, the charge has been made, and the fact that the payment has been accepted, and the photograph that Gary uploaded. So Gary, as a self-service customer, has access to all of those details at all times and can see what's going on with it. All he then has to do is submit that, and he will have that on his record of transactions with the local authority, with as a made-up customer of Redbridge Borough Council. Just a final piece on the customer self-service side. If Gary then clicks on service request in the top right-hand corner here, that will give him a list of all his current service requests. And top of that list, when it refreshes itself, should be the bulky item collection that he's just made. I'll just let that screen refresh. It's taking a little bit of a time to do that. So we've got a special collection, service request number 169409, 14th of the 8th at 10:59, Registrar Council, status open at 78 Grove Hill. And you can see the full history of all of Gary's activities as a customer and the things that he's been transacting with and their current status. So you're cutting off lots of the need for inbound contact from a customer self-service point of view. So that's the kind of customer side of things. We'll just we'll leave it at that for now, and we'll go over to the kind of back office side, and then we'll quickly move on to the mobile working element of the demonstration. So if we want to go and look at this in the back office, everything I've showed you so far is really the customer doing things for themselves. We're now going to take a slight fork in the road, and we're going to look at what that looks like in the back office. So I've gone to a different browser and I'm logging in now, not as a customer, but as a council officer. So we're getting much closer to the kind of the sharp end of the service delivery element. So I'm going to log in under my own Avavas email. Click login. Everything with My Council Services is cloud-based. So there's nothing installed locally. So you could, as long as you've got the right authentication and the right credentials, you could log in from from any machine or device, really, be that a tablet, a smartphone, a laptop. As long as you've got the appropriate credentials and privileges, and you can access it. There's nothing to run in the browser. It's completely zero client in that regard. So next step, we've logged into the back office of My Council Services, and we're looking at an interface called Service Desk. Service Desk is really a kind of a case management application, and it can be organized as a case management application across any service area. So we're looking at a waste process in this example. I can change that view based on my privileges, but I'm looking at the full catalogue of all of the waste forms, and I can narrow that down to just look at garden waste or trade waste or whatever it might be, but we're just looking at all of the waste forms. And we can see in tabular format there, at the top of that list is the service request that Gary has made at 10:59 today for a special collection. There's the customer details, and you can see the collection point from which that collection is to be made. So that now exists as data in the database. No one on the council side has had to touch that yet. Everything so far has been done automatically, or has been done really by Gary as the customer. It's going to refresh that screen, and then we'll drop into the detail in a second or two. So if I click on the service request number, which is a hyperlink, and drop into that, then I can go and look at the specific granular level detail of that particular service request. So I can see that the customer is Gary Wilcox. I can see his email address. I can see the status is open. I can see the date that it was submitted on. I can see that it was done from the self-service portal. I can see what it is that's being collected. So it's a special collection for electrical appliance and furniture that there's a charge levied on it, and that payment has been accepted. So I've got a lot of information at my fingertips from a case management point of view straight away. I can see the photograph that Gary has uploaded. I can scroll down, I can see the location, and then you can see a couple of other bits and pieces going on. You can see that automatically there's been a task created. So we talked in the introduction about the importance from a mobile working point of view of being able to automate workflow and process. And what the rules engine has done is, having received that, it's automatically created a task alongside that. So a work order, which is a special collection, the current status, and it's automatically assigned it out to an owner. Could be a team, could be an individual. In this case, that happens to be me that it's assigned it to. So there's work going on in the background automatically using the rules engine. I could, of course, do that myself. So on the right-hand side here, I've got a whole bunch of different options that really give you all of the case management tools. So I could, for example, If I wanted to update the owner, so I could override the automated rules, I could up the status, I could add a task, an outcome, link it to another service request. I've got a full suite of case management capability within the service desk application, which will aid and support the mobile working capability a little bit further down the line. You also see that while we've been doing that, it's also updated the ownership of the service request. So two things have happened from an automated workflow point of view. The ownership of the special collection service request has been assigned out to me as a mobile worker, and sitting underneath that at a more detailed level, a particular task has been created that's also been assigned out to me, as we just saw a moment ago. A couple of other bits and pieces that we can do if we wanted to. You'll see a column here called service. For every process that you're deploying through My Council Services, you can create what's called a service level agreement. You can configure a service level agreement. What that service level agreement can do is then wrap around a particular task to create more data that maybe helps manage escalation or management of that in some other way. And you can create a service level package for every type of process you've got on the platform if you wanted to. So one for special collections, a different one for fly tips, whatever it might be. You've got a whole range of options open to you in terms of how you configure that. But the two things going on, the kind of main message here is you've got the ability to case manage that from within the application, within Service Desk, and you've automatically got the rules kicking in. I'll show you where you build those rules up as we get towards the end of the demo in a bit, when we get down to the detail of the configuration elements. What I want to do at this stage, though, is jump across to the mobile working application proper. The situation actually is that all of the application that we've used so far could be accessed from a mobile device. So you could be on a browser, on a tablet, and you could be using the Service Desk, or indeed what we're about to do now is take a look at the specific mobile working app. To do that, I need to use a little bit of third-party technology, so I can share my mobile device screen with you. So bear with me a second or two while I do that. You should, in a second or two, be able to see my iPhone screen. Sorry, my Android tablet screen. I'm going to start an application up that will allow me to mirror my screen up onto my main screen. The moment of truth, we hope. Okay, that's an encouraging sound. So you should all be seeing a reflection of my Android tablet on the main screen now. So I've got an Android tablet, completely standard tablet in a rugged case in my hand, and that's reflecting up on the screen. What you can see in the bottom right-hand corner of that screen is a My Council Services demo application. When we deliver this for local authorities proper, for our customers, those applications are fully skinned and branded to reflect the visual identity of your local authority. But if I tap on that app, you should see the screen refresh, you'll get a loading screen, and then it will take you into the app proper, which should be building on screen for you now. So if you're seeing something, a grid pattern, 3 columns, and in fairly garish colours, this is an example of the My Council Services app, albeit in its generic form. So there's a number of things that you can do from here. So if you are a mobile worker and you're out in the borough and you're going about your business, there's a whole bunch of things that you can do. So the first thing you can do is you can actually access all of the Report It forms that are available to customers, and potentially other forms besides. So if I tap on Report It, for example, and as I'm going about my business, I want to report something myself. So let's say I want to report some fly posting. So we'll say, is the fly poster racially offensive or it contains nudity? We'll say no, that it doesn't. Please provide any information about the fly post that is relevant. So we might say, I don't know, persistent tagging here. So it might be a popular spot for graffiti artists and the like. Click on next. We then get an opportunity to take a photo of that incident. So I'm going to take a photo with my camera. So you'll see my messy desk, and then if I pop you up to pictures on the wall of my office, which is a Guinness advert, and we take a photograph of that, we can use that picture, and it will add that to the service request if we're happy with that. Click on done. Let the screen catch up. That's the photo I've taken. And click on next. This is happening on the surface of the planet somewhere, so we need to locate it. I'm just going to go a little bit slowly because there's a little bit of lag on the screen in terms of what I'm seeing. So it picks up my current location, so it knows where I am and how I'm connected to the internet and where I'm connected to the internet. So it picks up my current location, but I can override that if I like. So I can say, well, actually, I want you to find an address because it's at a particular address. So I'm going to say, we're going to go to a London address. I'll put in the town name. You can search in a partial address, the street name. I'm going to pop in a postcode as well, so I know I drop it into Redbridge. I'm going to go E18 1BD. I know that's a bona fide address in Redbridge. Click on Find Location. And that will relocate the map very quickly for me into South Woodford. If that's not quite the right location, I can always pick up the map pin and move that somewhere else. I can move that and drag it to wherever it happens to be. And it will automatically pick up the new address. And it will match that again to the address-based database, so the NLPG, which will match to your LLPG. If I'm happy with that, click on done. It will write those details back into the service request. Give it an incident date. So we'll say it's today, and the priority, we'll call it low, and then we'll click on submit. So as well as the ability to receive a digital task list, which we'll get to in a minute, what you're also doing with the mobile worker capability is giving your workforce the ability to go out and log automatically or through the same capability other incidents that they might see. That might be part of the team that they're working on. It might be for colleagues elsewhere in the council, and it tells them which report which council that's been submitted to. So if they had strayed over the border into a neighbouring authority, into Havering, for example, then it would automatically understand that. There's intelligence built into the system. But it knows that this incident, this graffiti tagging incident, is in Redbridge Borough Council. Click on OK, and that's then done. So what you're doing there, or what we've done there, is allowing mobile workers to actually create service requests on their own behalf, or potentially on behalf of their colleagues. So you're expanding the kind of your eyes and ears out on the street to keep your borough in good order. So that's the reporting, using reporting capability. That's available to mobile workers. It can be made available to the public as well as part of the public apps. But the piece I want to focus in on now is around the mobile worker capability. So you'll notice next to that report it grid square in the center of the screen, there's a mobile worker icon and grid square available. That would only be available to someone that's a verified and trusted user. So someone that's registered as a trusted user within the council. So what I'm doing, I've just gone into the mobile worker screen. It's automatically gone into my service request screen for mobile worker. And what I've done is I've just swiped the screen, and that is now going and knocking securely on the database of the My Council Services platform, and it is refreshing and looking for new service requests. And what you can see at the top of the screen there is, while I've been talking, is that special delivery organised by Gary at 78 Grove Hill at 10:59 this morning with the service request number 169409 is now available to me on my device. So there's an important number of things going on there, folks. The first thing is that the service request was created without any use of resource from the council whatsoever, other than the visitor arriving at the website and a registered customer creating that piece of data, that request for a service request, and paying for it. So making a contribution towards the cost of that service. And then the automated rules have kicked in and said, well, actually, we know where this is. We know that it's been paid for, so we can automatically assign it. And on that basis, a rule has kicked in and said, we'll automatically assign that out to Bernie in this case. And Bernie, me operating out in the borough then virtually with my device in my hand, can go in and check when I'm getting assigned jobs to me. So I'm getting my digital task list constantly updated. I can tap on that service request and I can go into the detail of it. I can see that it's a special collection. It's due for the 26th of August. So it would be give me a notifier on the day that I'm due to do that. I can see that it's been paid. I can see the customer that's still requested it. I can see a photograph of what it is I'm dealing with. If I allow that to refresh for a second. There we go. There's the photograph that Gary kindly uploaded for us. So I can see exactly what it is I'm collecting. I can swipe through and I can see the location of that. I can add notes to it. So I've got all of the customer data, all of the information that I need to go and deal with that effectively as a service request. But I can also, from within Mobile Worker, go back to and look at specific tasks. So as well as looking at service requests, I can look at tasks specifically that are assigned to me. If it's something more complex and it's been created as a case, perhaps with multiple service requests, multiple contributors, multiple documents attached to it, I can go and look at cases. If I'm doing asset inspections, so I'm actually going and inspecting an asset, that might be play equipment, it might be inspecting grip bins or other street furniture components, I can go and do asset-based mobile working, and I can even get down to the detail of individual products that we might be providing, so replacement bins, for example, or whatever it happens to be. So all of these things are available through the Mobile Worker suite. I'm just going to go and take a look at tasks, for example, because if you recall that when Gary submitted his service request for the bulky item collection and paid for that, the automated rules engine also created a task for me. So, and that task is now sitting at the top of my task list. So please collect as part of Special Collections, service request 169409 at 78 Grove Hill on the 14th of the 8th, 11:02. And if I tap on that, then I can go into the detail of that particular task. What I can also do from here, if I want to, is I can update things like the status. And if I want to put that, so if I'm at Gary's property and I'm removing that bulky item uplift and I click on close, then we need to get a signature. So it prompts me to get a signature against this. So in this context, we're saying, well, when we go and make a collection, we're asking for a digital signature. Now, you may not do that as a matter of protocol on your bulky item collections, but there will be other service deliveries, such when you're delivering something to the property or replacement bin, where you require the resident to be in and you do need to capture a signature. So I'm going to put a scrawly digital signature on here. I'm just going to sign my name. I'm going to put a date on it, 14th of the 8th, 2019, and then I'm going to save that. So the ability to configure a process to capture all of the relevant components, including things like digital signature, exists within the Mobile Working Suite. That data, all of the data that I'm adding to that, is accruing on the device locally. So I'm storing that locally in encrypted format on the device. So if the device gets lost, for example, then it's going to be very, very difficult for anyone to get hold of that data because it's all encrypted and they won't be able to see it and they won't be able to get that data off in any machine-readable format. If I want to write that data back to the central database, then all I need to do is swipe the screen or wait for it to periodically spool and refresh back to the database. But the other important point here, folks, is that I can work offline. So if I'm in a block of flats in the stairwell clearing a fly tip and I've got no signal, I can still take a photograph, I can update data on the task, and then when I've got a signal later on, I can swipe and I can update and write that data back to the central My Accounts for Services database. So there's a number of things that I've done there. We've looked at the ability to view a service request on screen. We've looked at the ability to work with a specific task on screen, get a digital signature against that, how we update the data on the service request and on the task, and how we then write that back to the central database. So that's some of the kind of core Mobile Worker feature and function. I'll just jump back to the main screen for a second or two. I've also talked about things like Mobile Manager on screen. So if I just tap into Mobile Manager, that gives me an ability to do a number of different things. I can either monitor the location of my team. So if I've got any team members out and about in the borough, I can see exactly where they are. So you'll see that's me there, but I've got a team member down there, Jason Bond down in South London, and I can zoom in and see those individuals. So I can monitor the whereabouts of team members that are affiliated to me as a manager. I can also do things like filter. So if I want to search for new ad hoc service requests coming in, but I'm out on the plot because I'm doing work as well, I can say, well, actually, have we got any new, report it forms or whatever it might be, or waste forms, and I can actually pull through new data whilst I'm out and about without the need to go back to base. So the mobile worker piece is improving productivity because it's stopping the need to go back to base to collect the afternoon worksheet or whatever that might be. It's improving accuracy because the data is consistent, there's no errors in translation, all those sorts of things. And crucially, it's saving time and saving money in terms of the ability to execute on inbound service requests and requests for assistance from customers. So that's some of the native mobile application mobile working capability. What I want to do, just to kind of bring things to an orderly conclusion, is just jump back to the service desk screen and show you a couple of bits and pieces. I'll refresh that screen. I'm going to drop back into the special collection service request that Gary created and that we've been working with, virtually out in the borough, as it were. And I'm going to scroll down a little bit, and you'll recall that there was a task, a work order task created against the service request itself. That was that work order which we looked at on the device that said, please collect as part of special collections. You'll notice and you'll recall that I was the person that was responsible for the collection of that particular bulky item uplift that had been paid for, and I closed that task off. So that task is now showing as closed. So the changes that I made out on the native mobile application are now present on the central database. That means that can trigger a notification back to Gary saying, yeah, thanks for putting your bulky item out. We've collected it. It's all dealt with. That's closed off. And if I drop into that, I should also be able to see some of the other changes that I made to that particular task. So we'll just wait while that screen refreshes, and we'll go in and take a look at the details of that specific task as we updated them. There we go. So we can see the particular task, and the item I wanted to show you specifically was the fact that we captured the customer's signature, my scrawled name, the date against that, so that you can see it happening in real time. So what you're able to do through the Mobile Worker Suite, as well as improve accuracy of data captured, you remove errors, improve location information, improve productivity of those out in the borough conducting mobile remote tasks on behalf of the council. You're also able to compress and shorten the time lags between reporting, allocation, completion, and feedback loop to the customer. So you can see all of those things have happened within a few minutes in this example. So you're really kind of driving and compressing the time taken to get these tasks completed. The final few bits and pieces that I wanted to run through with you this morning. And just wanted to very briefly show you the task console. So there's a whole ability to manage and create scheduled tasks. I've showed you ad hoc activities today, but actually you can go in and create scheduled tasks. You can schedule a task against a property, against an individual asset. You can assign it to an individual. That can be a repeatable task. You can do a whole range of different things in terms of the way that you want to create either ad hoc and or scheduled tasks. So you've got a full task management console that enables reporting against that. And then if I just drop down to the administration screens, which is the bottom left-hand option on this left-hand sidebar in the back office, this is where, if you will, the kind of magic happens in terms of the configuration capability. So we've got a forms builder, so you can design a form from scratch if you wanted to. If you don't want to do that, we also offer a form store in the administration screen. So the form store is not a chargeable interface, it's free, but what we've enabled our customers to do is to share the forms that they've created with their other local authority neighbours. I mentioned we only work with local authorities, so there's professional competition between one local authority and another to make sure you're doing your jobs well, of course, but there's no commercial competition. So we can allow our customers to share potentially valuable assets with other local authorities. So if you don't want to design a bulky item uplift form from scratch, you might search on the term bulky and see if anyone else has done the hard work for you. And so let's see what we get. I search on bulky, so you can see you can borrow a bulky item form from Blanagh Gwent, from Caerphilly, from Maidstone, from Glasgow, from Newport, from Somerset Waste Partnership, from Stafford Borough Council. Most organisations have got variations on the theme of these things. So if you don't want to start from scratch, you don't have to do that. So if you want to borrow Anglesea's bulky item uplift form, you might select that, you might preview it, and then you just click import, and it will import a copy of that into your secure instance of My Council Services. So we're trying to engender, as well as productivity gains, we're trying to engender community and sharing capability across the different local authorities that are using the platform. there's in excess of 50 local authorities using My Council services at the moment, coincidentally. So there's some real kind of momentum building behind that form store. I think something like 4,000 or 5,000 different form examples that you can borrow with pride from your neighbours. The other thing I showed you earlier on was the ability to take a payment over the web form. So the ability to run a revenue neutral service integration into your payment gateway capability. And I can just show you a couple of things in relation to that. If I take you down to the admin section that is general, and we look at plugins, and I click on that, it will take us through to various options that behave as a repeatable, reusable plugin on the platform. One of those is payment integration. So if we complete a payment integration for whatever process for your organisation, if you're using My Council services, once we've done that payment integration, you can use that integration over and over again for any other process. So you integrate once to your payment gateway securely, but you can reuse that as a plugin multiple times. So it's about having reusable, configurable assets. So if you started off with bulky item uplift as a paid process, and you then want to relaunch a green garden waste process as a paid revenue neutral service, you can use that same payment integration plugin to reuse that capability. So there's lots of configuration options available to you. The final thing I wanted to show you is just on the self-service side, how you configure some of that from a mobile working and a customer point of view. And I'll just click on tab up in the top right-hand corner here. You can configure the way that the apps look for workers and for the public at any given time that you want to. So you'll see here we've got different tabs that are available to us, and that will include things like our mobile worker tab. So if you wanted to add something to that or a feature to that, you could go ahead and you could do that. We just click on tabs at the top and add tab, and you'll be able to reconfigure and change the way that things look, and then just republish that. So no need to download a new app. It will just effectively respray the internals of your existing app and update it with the appropriate functionality. So the idea being that you can configure and reconfigure, and you can own the process of how your technology for mobile working or even for customer self-service is used and deployed. So you've got full configuration control at all times in terms of the way that you're using and deploying processes on the My Council Services platform. I'm conscious of time. We're just coming up to the hour. We've got 3 minutes left, and at that point what I want to do, just to bring things to an orderly and logical conclusion, is just jump back to the slides and just finish up with a little bit of advice in terms of how to get started. But I hope from a demonstration point of view, that's given you breathed a bit of life into how this could work for your organisation. Just some thoughts from our perspective, really, on advice to get started. My Council Services is a cloud-based platform. It's a contemporary platform. You don't have to try and, coin the phrase, eat the elephant in one sitting. You can implement it incrementally with a particular service area first, get some business benefit off that, and then perhaps roll it out in another area. But the idea is you configure, repeat, and roll out across the organisation. That's what we see with lots of our customers, the phased delivery over different applications and different service areas so that you can manage the rollout. And allied to that, we'd also suggest the concept of what we call kind of tactical wins. If you plan in phases to get particular things done, deliver them, see the benefit, build some confidence, you're de-risking that process, you're managing the investment in a phased way, and you can plan for the long term, but get tactical wins knocked over in the short term. The other thing I've mentioned and done my best to demonstrate in terms of integration and interoperability is to say that My Council Services is open. It can be quite easily integrated with other third-party systems and applications. We've seen an example of that this morning in terms of an integration to Payment Gateway. And the other thing I would say, just to kind of, I suppose, sort of temper my own enthusiasm for the platform, obviously we're evangelists and fans of it, and we're busy implementing it with lots of local authorities, but technology is really only part of the solution. Make sure that you educate your customers in terms of what they can do from a self-service point of view, and if you're rolling out mobile working, which has been the main topic of our discussion this morning, you really need to make sure that those that are going to be using that technology, both front office and back office, understand what it is they can and can't do and understand how to use it. Make sure you train them, make sure you educate them, make sure you involve them early in the design and rollout of their mobile working environment. We've seen lots of examples of that, and the sooner and earlier you involve your staff that are going to be using this technology and get their input and help them to own the process and feel some ownership of it, the more successful your mobile working project is going to be. And use the rollout of things like this, of technology to enable transformation and digital working, to redesign and simplify processes. If you're just rolling over historical processes onto a digital platform, you may not see the benefits that you're expecting or anticipating or hoping for. Use it as an opportunity to simplify process, document it, streamline things, use the technology to make things simpler, not more complicated. And on that note, as we click round to 11:30, as promised, I'd just like to say thanks very much for joining today's webinar. As I mentioned earlier, the slides will be available for download. There will be a recording of this session for you to watch again if you want to do that, or to share with colleagues. And if you've got more detailed questions, or you want to speak to us about a specific aspect of what you've seen this morning, and you want to get into more detail, don't hesitate. All our contact details are on the slides, and Rachel or I will be happy to speak to you. So thanks very much, folks, and I wish you a productive remainder of your Wednesday. Bye-bye now.